What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of New Gameplay today. Thanks for tuning in to Game Informer. I'm your host, Alex Van Aken. Today, joined by Wesley LeBlanc. What is going on, Wes?
Hello. I'm excited to see some of this game.
Heck yeah. I'm excited to see some Gotham Knights as well. Rounding us out, and the person whose footage we are looking at here today, Marcus Stewart. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic, or should I say bat-tastic?
Oh yes,
Ooh.
for sure, Bat-tastic. Oh man, look at Batgirl. Just I love the gliding. I'm already eager to play as Batgirl. The other stuff I'm not so sure, but Batgirl, I'm not gonna say a big Batgirl fan, but I am an occasional reader of the Batgirl comics from the New 52.
Batgirl curious? I don't know what
Yeah,
that means,
maybe.
But yes, like you mentioned, this is my footage. So I visited WB Montreal to play about 2.5 hours of Gotham Knights. I guess disclaimer, they flew me out and paid for my accommodations just to get that out there.
Important disclaimer.
So I got to play as a pretty just an open slice of the world within the first couple hours of the game. I took the time to play as all 4 characters. I think we're only going to see Batgirl here today. I also did a bit of co-op with one of the developers. And yeah, there's also an article up on the site now where I kind of break down some of the more interesting fun facts because we got to interview the entire dev team. So got a lot of info out of this, but I will say flat impression so far is that the game is pretty solid. There are some rough spots that I'm a little concerned about, but I think some of them could maybe be chalked up to sort of pre-launch maybe jank, or it's kind of making that final push towards the finish line, so we'll see. But as you're seeing here, the action, I think, first and foremost, I think maybe people might think it's Arkham-y in the combat, and it very much is not.
Oh, really?
No. It's actually a lot simpler than Arkham, which is weird to say because those games were pretty much just mash the punch button and dodge all the time. But you have a single attack button that does some very basic combos, and then you have one ranged attack that does the hero's projectile. So you saw there a little earlier, I was kind of throwing shotgun-esque blast of projectiles as Batgirl. And then other than that, you're just kind of dodging and whatnot. And kind of the bread and butter for attacks are all the hero's special abilities. So the game kind of has a fighting game style system where all your attacks build up a meter. You see there in the bottom left, it's your momentum meter. And it's divided into 2 bars.
Is that the white bar right there? Bottom left? Okay.
And as you successfully nail attacks and dodge perfectly, you'll fill that meter up, and then you can spend it on your abilities, which are in the little crossbar there, and you'll hit R1 and then whatever button your abilities are assigned to. And that's kind of what, differentiates each knight. So for Batgirl, one of her abilities that I liked is that she could summon this drone that kind of flies around and just kind of peppers enemies. So it's really good for crowd control.
Okay, yeah.
Robin has a cool one where he can kind of activate. Yeah. I thought you cut that out, Alex.
I didn't even know. That is so good. I hope he made this jump. Oh, he made it, everybody. Let's go.
Trial and error, right? Robin has a cool one where he can activate this sort of portal, basically, and just suck enemies towards him, which is really good for stealth if you need to bring someone far away, within your reach so you can choke them out. And Red Hat is one where he just kind of goes ballistic and just unloads clips of ammo into somebody. And I will say the combat was a little off-putting at first because it felt a little more, I hate to use slower because I don't know if that's right. It just felt less snappy than the Arkham games because the animations they're just very animated. You hit a punch and then Nightwing will do a whole flip kick thing. And so it wasn't I couldn't just go nuts on people with the same pacing that I could the Arkham games. Okay. I eventually got used to it, but it was something that took me a while to kind of fall into.
Yeah.
Do you think that works as its own game, or do you find yourself wishing that it just felt like Arkham?
I mean, I definitely felt myself wishing it felt like Arkham when, especially during the first maybe like half hour, where I was like,
Mhm.
okay, this is fine, but I kind of wish this was like that. But WB, because I mentioned to the devs, I was like, this feels simpler by comparison, and they said that's by design because especially as a co-op game, they want players to kind of fall into each character quicker and to not overwhelm them with like all the different abilities up front. It
Hmm.
also is worth noting that I was playing with the base versions of all these characters. There's an upgrade tree that you're going to be layering on new abilities as you earn points. I unlocked some new stuff during my playthrough, but not a ton. But I asked them if the melee gets any more complex as you go, and they said that it did. So
That's promising. Yeah.
we'll see.
I mean, the reasoning behind you don't want to overwhelm players seems a little silly, but just because like I would think like, oh, well, if people are gonna like settle in as a character, they want to like explore them and like learn them and their intricacies. But I'm also not a game developer, so what do I know?
Yeah.
But okay, yeah. One of my main concerns, kind of leading up to launch, has just been kind of Batgirl seems really polished in terms of like animations. Like I almost wonder if she was the character they've been developing the longest.
Oh, interesting.
Because if you look at like Red Hood, I feel like his animations are the least polished. Like even like his walking animations and like mantling and stuff like that. Whereas Batgirl seems to be like the most like, oh, like were you starting this off as like a, you know, it's almost like, oh, I'd love to have a Batgirl game, but
Yeah.
but I think she looks like her sequences from what I've seen look really polished. So hopefully that's just like a, like you said, pre-launch thing. We'll have to wait till the final game to see.
Right.
But yeah, sorry, I interrupted. I'm just very interested in this game. It's probably one of my the games I'm most curious about coming this fall. But we're watching you walk through this penitentiary, looking at numbers on a screen. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so right now we are in Blackgate Prison. We are on our way to have a conversation with Harley Quinn, who, if you watched one of the more recent trailers, you know that she's in the game and is one of the other villains. Like the Court of Owls is the main villains, but some of the other more like classic Batman villains are in this game, among like Mr. Freeze and Clayface. So yeah, I'm beating up these guards here. And the other thing I like about this game is that I kind of like the structure of like, so when you're in Gotham, so the game unfolds over a series of weeks. It's not like one night like a lot of the Arkham games are.
Oh, okay.
And so it's sort of segmented where like, you'll go out, you'll choose which mission you want to do. You're free to do whatever you want of like, but there's like individual arcs of like, so Harley has her own like villain arc. So, you can engage with that as often or as, little as you want. But whenever you're done, doing whatever you want to do in Gotham, you return to the Belfry, which is the sort of like clock tower hangout for all the knights. And that's kind of like your basically Mass Effect Normandy, like, hey, I'm going to hang out with the other heroes. It's where you switch which hero you want to be. And, you talk to them, you sort of build relationships and kind of get into their, individual like emotional arcs. And as well as do all your like upgrading and equipment switching and stuff. And then, once you go back out, that starts like a new day, basically, or a new night. The game's always going to be at night. And I think that's kind of a cool system, of like, okay, I'm going to go out, do whatever I want to do. And then there's sort of a bit of a reward because I did enjoy some of the conversations and like, I'm a sucker for like, again, Mass Effect style, like, oh, I got a crew that I can kind of get to know.
Yeah,
and, you go back and like, cool. Oh, I'm gonna go talk to Nightwing and see what's going on with him. What's because trauma is like the big thing with this game. Like the devs talk about how they each have their own sort of like ways of dealing with Bruce's death, and you'll see that sort of evolve and reveal itself throughout the game. So I am interested in that aspect, and I did like exploring the Belfry. There's some fun Easter eggs in there. I won't spoil what they are, but it is a fun space to poke around in. So yeah, that's something that I am pretty positive on.
Awesome. And I do have a question for you, Marcus. So it looks like enemies have levels to them. So these enemies are level 6. When you're walking around this prison area, did you find that there are areas that were like, oh, I've stumbled into the level 10 area, or Or are they all pretty much your level throughout?
Not in this, but this is also a more story focused area.
Okay.
So maybe it's tailored to, you know, like since this is like a critical thing, you're going to be good to go for it. But
Yeah.
I mean, you do level up each night and you also equip gear to, you know, make them better. And the gear is pretty flexible. You can kind of wear whatever you want, but they do each have like elemental properties of like, oh, this is my shot gear. This has ice damage, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the idea is that they want to kind of emphasize the sort of like the prep time aspect of Batman, right? You know, like, you know, that's something Batman always does, and he's always tinkering with his suits and trying to wear the best thing for the best situation. And they did talk about how even though you can kind of wear whatever you want and get by pretty well, the boss fights, especially towards the latter half of the game, will sort of reward you for like maybe wearing the best things to deal with a certain villain.
Okay. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
How much of the like exploring of just the world did you get to do, or were you only doing scripted missions like this?
Oh no, I was free to explore as much as I wanted.
So like, what are you doing when you're not doing a main story mission in Gotham?
So there are like smaller side crimes. Like there's like if you've played games like Marvel Spider-Man, you'll probably have a decent idea of like, okay, here's like a little icon that's just like, here's a GCPD street crime. You can go bust that if you want. Here's some thugs maybe causing some trouble to like a victim. You go down there and beat the crap out of them. I didn't engage too much with those. I was kind of focused on the more narrative driven stuff, but I did see like other icons on the map that just seem to be different versions of those. You know, they're not all going to be the same. Like, hey, there's just a group of dudes here, beat them up. Like they were talking about, they do take like the crimes take different forms. There's some maybe like car chase stuff, and you know, in terms of the traversal, you have different options. We saw Batgirl, you know, can glide. You know, all four of them have their own thing, as well as all of them have the ability to summon the Bat Cycle at will. You know, your little motorcycle. So if you don't want to grapple and jump around, you can just ride that thing as much as you want once you unlock it, which you do pretty early.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd say so far, like it was hard to get a full scope of like the variety of the side missions, but there are like other smaller things. And actually one quick cool touch is that, so unlike the Arkham games, there are actual regular civilians on the street instead of just criminals.
Oh, that's nice.
And they actually react to you, and they kind of and I mentioned this in my other written piece, they serve as sort of a barometer of your progress as a hero, because when Batman's dead, everyone's like not as trustworthy or like faithful that you can fill his shoes of like, oh, his Bat kids are just not as good as him. We're kind of scared. But as you progress through the game, you'll see them, like if you take the time to go interact with them, they'll maybe be like, oh, you suck early on, but then later to be like, actually, you're okay, I guess. You're you know, maybe you're not Batman, but you're getting there. It reminds me of a lot of the street level interactions in Insomniac Spider-Man game.
Oh, I like that a lot. Well, sweet. Well, Marcus, when is Gotham Knights out, and where can people play it?
So Gotham Knights comes out October 21st. It is going to be available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC. And like I said, you can check out my written article on GameInformer.com right now that goes into some more other fun little nuggets that we didn't touch on in this video.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody go and check that out. Live now, GameInformer.com. I'm sure we'll have a lot more Gotham Knights stuff coming up in the coming weeks. The game is only a couple weeks away, so yeah. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. And yeah, Marcus, Wes, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye.